What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Canes Insight Daily podcast powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. I'm still at the mountains. There was no media access at practice yesterday, but we got some scoop giving you the latest practice buzz from your Miami Hurricanes at spring practice. Also, huge recruiting weekend coming up. Multiple big-time kids will be on campus for the pool party. We'll break down some of those names, what they could potentially bring to the program, their level of interest, etc. Recruiting is absolutely hot and heavy. We've been dropped in the bank with exclusive recruiting tidbits for weeks. A lot of that stuff you've seen now come to pass. So we'll talk about what's happening this weekend with a loaded weekend, even more visitors that we can't talk about, but we'll talk about the ones that are out there as we get ready for some major potential fireworks. First, let's talk about some folks that I can't talk about. You already know. Their name is known. That is Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. Pete, hop in.
Good morning, D. Nice and early for you over there.
Yeah, the Rocky Mountain Air, feeling good, but wanted to get this one out. Just give you the latest spring practice buzz. Had to do some work. I know you weren't out there yesterday because they were blocking off everybody. I think what happened was, now that I've done some digging, is because today is the coaches convention, I think they had a ton of college or high school coaches out there yesterday. So maybe it was just too many people, and they didn't want the whole media contingent. They wanted both sides available for high school coaches, because today's coaching convention, where Miami brings in a lot of high school coaches, youth coaches, whatever, 7-on-7 coaches to talk ball, have a little coaches clinic, chalk talk. And then tomorrow, as I understand, back to regularly scheduled programming. You'll be doing your daily spring practice report from there. But good thing is, when there's a ton of people going to practice, you get a little bit of tidbits.
Can we, you just mentioning the coaches clinic just brings me back to when I first started covering recruiting, D, and like how many broken relationships there were down here in South Florida with the high school coaches, and like even with Randy, with Golden. I feel like Rick really cleaned a lot of that up for the most part, but it's crazy how you don't hear anything of that sort now. Besides, of course, a famous high school coach down here, but
Well, I think there's always going to be a little friction, because when you hire anybody from high school down here to your own staff, 70 people think they should have gotten that job. So that's always going to be a problem. Doesn't matter who the head coach is, just because that's the nature. You could hire a high school head coach as your head coach, and it'll cause more problems. So no matter who the head coach is, there's always going to be friction with some people because of that dynamic. But in general, doors are open. You're right. Mario's done a lot to bring in the high school coaches. He recruits so hard. He's always dealing with these guys. So I think he has done a really good job, and a conscious effort, because this is not a springboard job to him. He is somebody who wants to, really put up roots here and be here like Saban was at Alabama for a long time. So I think that's the idea. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, early morning here. Philip Robinson saying, no cafecito. I'm assuming, I wish I had some Islas Canarias cafecito, but I got some American coffee. So we're off and running. But Pete, first, want to just kind of go through a few things that I'm hearing for practice. Pull up the tweet, Pete, if you can, from Brian Baldinger. So those who don't know, Brian Baldinger is,
I think it's Baldinger. But
Baldinger. Okay, there you go. That was a tricky one. I definitely need your help for that one.
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's Baldinger.
Oh yeah, listen, I'm sure you know. But anyways, so Brian Baldinger, who is an NFL Network analyst, former NFL offensive lineman, lives down here in South Florida. He was at Pro Day. Then he went out to practice yesterday, and he said right there, see in the tweet, I went to Mario Cristobal's practice on Tuesday. Most impressive practice I've seen at any level in years. This guy covers NFL. I believe in Mario. I believe in the Canes. Power to UM. Baldy's breakdown. So appreciate that comment from Brian. Appreciate you, Birdstone. Remember, like and subscribe to this show. So I heard it was a good practice. A lot of competition back and forth. The thing I'm hearing, which is interesting, is offense really beat up on the defense yesterday. I have been to practices where the offense has had struggles. So it's back and forth. You definitely don't want to read too much into it at this time. But yeah, that was a good day for the offense yesterday from what I'm hearing. Heard Emery had a good day, threw the ball well. Dalen Upshaw is a name that's come up as far as young players who flashed. Heard he went over the top of Ethan O'Connor, mossed him. Ethan O'Connor had a good day, but then when he went against Dalen Upshaw, the freshman from Alabama, Upshaw did his thing. So that's another, we talked about Malachi Toney. We talked about Josh Moore having a big day last week, Thursday, Saturday. Dalen Upshaw having his turn in the spotlight. These are three very, very good young receivers. So keep an eye on those guys. We've been talking about them since they got here. Really like all three of our receivers. The names you keep hearing as far as consistent, proven playmakers that I think are going to be focal points of this team. Talking about JoJo Trader, Elijah Lofton. I think those are guys that you're starting to see separate and be the guys. Now you're going to bring in somebody as well, at least one person, I believe, a wide receiver. You have CJ Daniels coming back. He's going to be a very reliable option in terms of age, very consistent hands catcher, contested catcher. The stats on him in contested catch situations are outstanding. But as far as those dynamic kind of lead dogs, when you lose a Restrepo, when you lose an Arroyo, I think JoJo Trader and Elijah Lofton, different types of players in those guys, but guys that are going to get open and consistently make plays, including running after the catch. Those guys were highlighted to me. Just in general, the offensive line and the running game. I heard the running game was very good. Same token, struggles to stop the run. So every time you say something kind of good about, one team or one unit, the other unit, I guess is a negative. It's back and forth. That's spring practice, but I don't want to make it seem like I'm just saying only positive. The running game was very good yesterday. So if I wanted to be negative, I'd say the run defense wasn't as good yesterday. Take it how you want to take it, but I do think we're going to run the ball with this offensive line. Guys like Mao Noah, Markel Bell, and Nez Cooper, just go on down the line. This offensive line is built to run, and you have really good.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna basically follow that up with Baldinger's a former offensive lineman, right? And he's a guy who, if he has his breakdowns, if you follow him on Twitter, he's a must follow for anything, NFL and college, like video related. He puts out great breakdowns, and it's always a lot of the little stuff, the playing hard, playing tough, physical with him in a lot of his breakdowns, right? And I can only imagine that he was out there watching that offensive line work. And we've heard for years, look, you can criticize certain things about Mario, but you're not going to criticize his relentlessness on the recruiting trail. You're not going to question the toughness that he instills in a team and the culture that he can build and how hard they practice. That's something we've heard from day one, right? There's people who was maybe questioning it early on when it was a lot of the old guys, the Manny players, I'll say, who people inside the building were like, man, these guys are really getting beaten up, right? Is this how it is because of it's Mario's style? And I can only imagine that Baldy out there was like, man, this is good. This is good stuff to watch.
Yeah, it's a fun team to watch if you're an offensive line fan. And I've made this point before. So I interviewed, I should be dropping today, I believe, maybe dropping in the next 15 minutes. I'll post it when it does. I was able to interview James Brockermeyer, Miami's new center, who's a starter at TCU, all Big 12 player, now transfers to Miami to be our center. His dad was an NFL offensive lineman for many years, first-round pick out of Texas, and now does media for many different outlets, breaking down really college football in general, but also offensive line play. So I think, similar to Brian Baldinger, right? Blake Brockermeyer, the dad, he's very similar to Baldinger in his role as a media guy, just more probably college focused, where Baldinger is pro as a former NFL lineman. And he sent his son, his son had input too, but he helped guide his son to the University of Miami. So when you have a guy who his job is to look at the offensive lines across the country and break them down, and he himself played in the NFL for 9 years with first-round pick, and he says, hey, Miami's where you want to be. I think that speaks volumes, and it's something that people should take from the James Brockermeyer edition, not just that we got a good starting center, but the fact that he chose Miami and was kind of steered towards Miami by someone who knows what other offensive line looks like, knows what other offensive coordinators look like. So to me, that is very telling. Good news for the Miami Hurricanes. And that interview with James Brockermeyer drops, I think today, if not this week, on Storm Sessions, my podcast with the University of Miami. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Storm Sessions, and you see it on YouTube on the official Miami Hurricanes YouTube channel. Great kid, James Brockermeyer, really smart guy. And I think one thing I took from that interview is, he is extremely cerebral. He's like a 4.0 type kid, grew up around football. His whole family played football at a high level. Talking to him and his dad, and hearing Mirabal talk about it as well. This offense from the center position is very much about IQ, because the center has more responsibility than other teams in terms of just identifying fronts and making calls. This is a very center-intensive offense from an IQ standpoint. There's just a lot that they have to do. So you want your center to be very smart. I know there was some criticism of Brockermeyer. The word on him out of TCU from like a PFF standpoint was really good pass blocker, not as good as a run blocker. But I think, and this is what I know the people involved think, because TCU didn't have necessarily the monsters around him, it was just not a very good run blocking line in general. And when you talk about Miami, when you have a Nez Cooper, Matt McCoy, both 320 plus easy, now you got a double team with the center. This team, Miami, likes to run duo, which is gap scheme, a lot of double teams. So the center's ability to just individually blow guys off the ball is less valued than the IQ, because they are able to double team with monsters to the right and left. There's a comment I want to get to from Nick Isaac. Coach Macho, great coach, is the defensive coordinator at Western High, longtime contributor to CanesInsight.com. 7 million posts and counting. Sign up for free if you haven't on Canes Insight message board. We got all kinds of high school coaches, former college coaches, just guys that really know ball, breaking stuff down. And Coach Macho is one of those guys. He was posting on Canes Insight, and he said he was at practice yesterday and mentioned on the board that we don't have a lot of those tone setters, and there isn't much violence on defense. Is that aligned with what you've seen and heard? It's funny. So me and Macho actually had this conversation last year at practice. Same thing. And I think that came out on the field. I do believe we could use somebody to really bring the juice and energy from a physical standpoint on defense. So that's a safety, where that's like a, boundary safety, linebacker. Someone that maybe you don't bring in necessarily just for coverage purposes, but has that, and like maybe you're getting a little bit of coverage with him, but has that physical nature, that juice, that energy to really amplify the energy on defense. I think that's something that we could use, something I'd like to see us bring in from the spring portal. I don't think we need to bring a ton from the spring portal. It's going to be selective to me. A wide receiver that's a veteran receiver that can make plays. A tone setter in that back seven that's going to be around the ball, that's going to hit, it's going to bring juice. We had that when you look at the good defenses we had with Manny Diaz. Talk about the top 10 defenses that he had when Mark Richt was the head coach. You had Shaq, you had Jaquan Johnson. Those guys brought a lot of energy, brought a lot of consistent tackling. They were not perfect. You could pick apart their pass coverage, for example. They weren't, day 1, day 2 picks. They were day 3 picks. But I think that aspect is what they brought and allowed the whole defense to get even better. And that those were top 10 defenses. So I think this defense needs a little bit of that. And I think if we do bring in someone from the portal at either one of those positions, I would favor the running game and the ability to just kind of bring the juice in that way over the passing game. Look, you want Sean Taylor that does it all, right? That's what you want. Or Malachi Starks or Caleb Downs, whoever. But to me, I would give a little bit of the coverage to have more of the physicality and tone setting that Macho's talking about. So I agree with him 100%. I talked to him about it last year, and right back at it here this year.
Kyle, man, you're always busting our chops, man. You're asking about the Baldinger comment. You're late, man. You already missed it. You got to rewind it.
Coach Jenko, appreciate you. Morning, boys. Early morning editions are nice to start the day with some info on the Canes. Canes Insight Cafecito podcast. I see the MLB baseballs in your avatar there, fired up for opening day. I got my Marlins cap on. Excited to see. I'm excited to see at least the first game with Sandy and Paul Skeens. After that, it's going to get a little dicey, but it's going to be a great baseball season. I think MLB, man, is cooking. I want to knock the NBA, but I got my Spo shirt on, my Spo nose shirt, because the Heat are back, as you saw, with that defining win against the Golden State Warriors.
Steph Curry-less Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, put them in a
Steph Curryless.
Put them in turmoil. 11 points for Jimmy Butler. Did not step up with Steph Curry out. You saw Miami end that losing streak with a huge game from Andrew Wiggins. Then you blow out the Warriors. I do believe this team is now finding it. You get Niko Jovic back on the field or on the floor. So I think this team is about to make a run. I hope the Warriors don't make the playoffs so that he can have a lottery pick this year. We'll see how that all goes, but fired up for the Miami Heat. So
something rotten's going on there, man. All I'm going to say, those Riley, man, rotten things.
All right, P. Good transition here from Steve Ely. He wants to ask about a 5-star receiver. So we'll talk about it. First of all, about some 5-star cuisine. That is Islas Canarias, the #1 Cuban restaurant in all of Miami. I'm working on getting these guys to cater some of these pool parties, because if they cater these pool parties, you're going to be talking about, more commitments than you can take. You're going to have to turn kids down. It's the #1 Cuban restaurant in Miami. It has been for over 40 years, almost 50 years. We're about 2 years away from the 50-year anniversary of Islas Canarias. The only difference now is you have the express version in Dayland Mall in the dining pavilion. So you have all that tradition, all that award-winning cuisine that is just world famous, certainly iconic in Miami amongst the Cuban community. And now you get that right there in the Dayland Mall dining pavilion, all the best items. Plus you got, just different kinds of things. You got the classics, all the classic stuff that, your grandma may have served to you, or maybe your Cuban friend's grandma served to you. Now you got cubaditos to get on the run. You got kimchi croquetas, mixing Korean and Cuban fusion. So you got all kinds of stuff. You got Americanized stuff. You got the traditional stuff. Whatever way you want to get your Cuban food, you got it at Islas Canarias Express right there in the Dayland Mall dining pavilion. Old Baldy's saying that transition was wild. I really believe it, man. If we had them catering these pool parties, we'd be unstoppable. So Pete, let's start with the 5-star visiting this weekend. So it's a huge visit weekend. This is a visit I've known about for a while. Kind of want to let him say it himself, because he is committed to another school. So we like to keep those quiet here. But the cat's now out of the bag, and that is Chris Henry Jr. visiting the University of Miami this weekend.
Freudian slip right there, maybe.
I wish it was. No, I don't know. He's committed to Ohio State. There's some big boys. This is going to be a tough battle. But Miami's in the game. That's all you can ask for. This guy's a complete stud. You watch him. He's about 6'4", 6'5". Tremendous fluidity and quickness in and out of his breaks for a receiver that size. Mater Dei High School. I believe he's originally from Ohio. And he is visiting this weekend with some Mater Dei teammates, including Tom Tapoy, who we'll talk about here in a second. But this guy's a 5-star for a reason. He's, Ohio State commit. Ohio State's been getting guys like this, but the process is still going on. He's still visiting schools like Miami. He's still interested in schools like Oregon. So there's a chance he's here. Again, the son of the late Chris Henry, former wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals. I believe he played at West Virginia. Right? Chris Henry, senior.
Mm-hmm.
So he's visiting this weekend. And look, do we have a shot? You're on campus, there's a shot. Miami had a lot of production from its wide receivers last year, had the #1 offense in the country. So I think their ability to sell guys like this is increased. And Miami wants a big-time wide receiver in this class. They're not being quiet about it. They made a strong run at Tristan Keys. He ended up committing to LSU. That one could swing around. Who knows if LSU has a bad year this year. But you had #1 receiver in the country on campus, Tristan Keys. Depending who you ask, some people think Chris Henry's the #1 receiver in the country. He's on campus. So you're in the game for elite players. And when you're in the game for elite players, you are going to have a chance to get elite players. So another guy I want to talk about, a teammate of Chris Henry, who is Tom Tapoy. So his name is Tomohini Tapoy. I believe they call him Tom. He is another one. He was committed to Oregon, but he recently decommitted from Oregon. A lot of people think that is going to be a guy who commits ultimately to USC. USC, which is the local school for these Mater Dei kids, is doing a lot to kind of, first of all, spend money. They hired a very expensive player personnel guy,
Chad Bowden.
They've been recruiting poorly, certainly in California. Lincoln Riley's done a terrible job there. So they're trying to kind of change that financially. So they're making a strong run at some of these local kids, some of these poly kids. But this is a guy who visited Miami earlier in the spring, is now coming back this weekend, also going to make a potentially an unofficial visit. I think he's exactly what we need at defensive tackle. I mean, you just watch. This is one of my favorite guys to watch. You did lose Coach Joe, who was very instrumental with bringing in Polynesians players to the University of Miami. But you brought in Kiki, and I want to make sure I'm pronouncing his last name properly. So give me a second.
I'm not sure looking at the name is going to help you pronounce it better, but
Miami was able to bring in the recruiting coordinator from Hawaii, who is very tied in with this community. So that's going to help, just because this is very much, whenever you recruit Polynesian players, it's about relationships. It is a unique kind of deal when it comes to recruiting, because there's so many family ties. There's so many relationship ties. It's not just, hey, we have the best, facility or whatever it is. So I think that's something that is important, and Miami's obviously making a conscious effort to do it. But this is a guy he's going to end up visiting multiple times this weekend or this spring, and the potential taking an official visit. So when you're getting guys on campus to that level, that makes a big difference.
Got some Vita Vea vibes with the ball in his hands. So you've seen those old clips of Vita Vea running back.
Yeah, Vita Vea, a 3-star, right? That you just saw him run the ball and stuff in high school, and you wonder how did this guy not make it to the 4-star, 5-star level. This guy Tom plays for Mater Dei, so he's not sneaking up on anybody making plays like that. I mean, I'm looking at the ranking, 130th ranked player in the country. I think that's probably a little low. So, he's saying I didn't say the name. I know. I'm looking it up. I can't find it. Let me see if I can find it here. But I'll try my best, guys. This is Pete. How's your
let me find it. I'll get it. Let me get it. Hold on.
I know you're the pronunciation king. So, I depend on you a lot.
Let's see. I'm looking up the staff.
All right. How about this? Kieki Misipeka.
Sounds good to me. Sounds great to me. I don't see him on the official staff list here.
That's who it is. Yeah, I saw him at practice the other day, Kieki.
Yeah, I saw him at Pro Day the other day too. I'm looking for it on the official. He's not on the staff directory, so.
But while we're talking about kind of these freak athletes with the ball in their hands, let's pull up our favorite player of this class.
Hold on, I gotta say this real quick though. Anthony Manzano says the tape you're showing reminds me of Hello Nada. Which he means Haloti Nada, the great Ravens D tackle. But I love the spelling there, the attempt at it. That was a good one.
Hello Nada. So, while we're talking about guys that are freaks with the ball in their hands, let's transition. Let's talk about, this is our favorite recruit, I got to say, in the class. Every chance we get to pull up this guy's highlights, we have to do it, which is Superman Hezi Kent from Georgia. Again, Miami is recruiting this guy as a tight end. He is about 200 and a million pounds. I mean, how much does this guy weigh? He's got like 290, 280. Look at the official measurements that they got him here on 247, 6'5", 300. But Miami is recruiting him as a tight end. They're not recruiting him as a D tackle. They're not recruiting him as an offensive tackle. And you say, how could they do that? Look at this little screen right here. Look at this man move right here. This is real competition in Georgia. Breaking tackles, the balance. I mean, I think you put this guy's, there he is taking the direct handoff as the Wildcat. I mean, this guy can make plays, man. You could use him as a Wildcat like J.J. Pegues from Ole Miss this year. You saw him score a bunch of touchdowns as a defensive tackle / Wildcat. Look at the balance here. As an inline blocker, you think of a Darnell Washington, who everybody thought he was going to transition to tackle. He never did. Still got drafted high by the Steelers because he's such a force as basically your like 6th offensive lineman. Look at this, man.
I'm telling you, man, I was watching an NCAA tournament game the other day, and Memphis has a center named Dane Danger, who I was like, this guy reminds me of someone. It hit me. I was like, he's moving like Hezi Kent out there. 6'9", 270 is what this guy's listed at.
The guy's making all kinds of catches. He's throwing the ball like, we did the Cam Ward special yesterday at Pro Day where they threw it to Cam Ward. You can see Hezi Kent throwing passes to Darion Coleman. With some of the plays they're showing here. And then, of course, the blocking. And, man, when you put him on the perimeter to block, it's, like, unfair. I just love that they're throwing him screens, man, and then he's going to work. Like, this guy, they want to get the ball in his hands.
Who wants to tackle that guy in the open field?
Yeah, love this guy. Question from A50K. Appreciate your support. Javari Flowers commits Monday. Feelings, I think NIL is a big one. here. You look at some of the schools, Syracuse, Florida, Miami, schools that are really trying to kind of, especially Syracuse and Florida, those schools have not recruited very well in recent years. They're trying to make a jump by paying. So those are things to watch. Miami loves Javari Flowers. I think he could be a returner day one while also helping in the nickel. I wish he was in 26 instead of 25 because we just went crazy on defensive backs in this portal season in this class. So, you wish it was more spread out, but Miami really wants this guy. He's on campus. They'd love for him to be a Hurricane. So we'll see what happens. But I think that's going to be very much an NIL recruitment. Miami really values this player because he's such a great athlete and he can help us right away. Not only as a nickel corner, which I think he can be very good there, but also very good kick returner that starts day one. So some other guys I want to talk about here, Pete, and this is someone I didn't put on the roll call, but I want you to pull up before we move on to the next one, which is Zachary Turner. And that's Zachary Zachery Turner. And this is a tight end who I think is a very interesting player here. He's from Duncanville. So if that name sounds familiar, Duncanville is where Decorian Moore, number one wide receiver in the country, played last year. Keelan Russell from Alabama, number one, number two quarterback, depending who you ask, in the country last year, played there. So this is a powerhouse in Texas. And when you look at Zachary Turner, he's a high 3-star player, number 20 tight end in the country, 6'2", 215, Florida State, SMU, Arizona State on him. So you say, all right, well, this guy's more of like your H-back type guy, which is true. He's definitely not going to be your big inline guy like our boy Hezzy Kent. But as that Elijah Lofton, as that Brock Schott type guy, this guy brings a very, very unique skill set. He is extremely productive. Also a basketball player, throws down some pretty nasty dunks. But he is very much an athletic specimen who's just sort of your unique athlete, right? So he's not going to be, again, built like Elijah Arroyo. But if you figure out ways to get him the ball, you will be happy. Look at this, 933 yards, 16 touchdowns. So this is an extremely productive player at the tight end position, which is, you don't always see tight ends catching the ball. Look how sudden this guy is. I mean, really, he's a tight end, but if you treat him as a wide receiver, I mean, he's got a lot of juice, man. This is Texas, big-time football, and he's out there cooking everybody with just pure speed and acceleration at, if you treat him as a receiver, he's a 6'2", 210-pound receiver. I think this is a guy Miami just wants to kind of get in the fold because he's so productive and he's such a good player. So
little Jonnu Smith. I mean, actually, you know what's funny? I just looked up Jonnu Smith's 247, and he's listed at 6'3", 210 coming out of high school. And that's exactly what Turner's 6'2", 210. But yeah, I think Jonnu was the first one that came to mind.
Look at that play you just saw. He broke like 6 tackles and then beats everybody to the end zone with speed. This is a really explosive and twitchy player. You could see it when you watch his highlights. The physicality there on the perimeter. You see him burying guys, so he can do that to you. Just a good football player, man. Again, when you watch Lofton, when you watch Schott, it's like, where does he fit? Blah, blah, blah. He's not perfect 6'5", 240 type tight end, but you just say, man, this guy's just a good player, man. He breaks tackles. He's explosive. He is productive. He's proven. He's tough. And you say, I just want this guy on my team. And I think this is a guy right here that I just want on our team in some form or fashion. You can figure out the rest later. Rondé Gatson is another one of those junior. Was he a wide receiver? Was he a tight end? Did it matter when we was killing our guys against Syracuse? Some guys are just good players, and you will be able to find favorable matchups. So this guy's going against a DB like he is there. Boom. Mazza's him in the end zone. He's a mismatch against DBs. And you say, okay, well, what about in the muck? Well, you could put him there in the backfield. He could just sprint out, get wide open. And he's tough, so he'll compete. You don't need him to go in line and just deal with your 260-pound defensive ends. Maybe you have 300-pound Hezzy Kent doing that work for you. So add good players, add explosive players, add playmakers. And I think that's what you're seeing with Zachary Turner, who hasn't been talked about a lot, but is visiting this weekend, as I understand, is a guy that Miami really, really likes.
I like him. I mean, first time watching him here, but I'm a big fan of guys like this. I think you can create a lot of mismatches on the field. And
look at, it's a long highlight reel. He's making a lot of plays. Now his quarterback is great. This is Keelan Russell's going to Alabama. So his quarterback is an absolutely elite player, but he also had elite weapons like Zachary Turner and Decorian Moore. So, it's an interesting name, and a name I think Miami fans haven't been necessarily focused on, but I think it's someone that they should focus on because he is a guy that Miami really values as a playmaker. Want to talk about a guy who is 4-star player, local guy, big boy, 6'5", 350 from Sarasota, Florida, right there in the Bay Area on Florida's West Coast, Cardinal Mooney High School, and that is Deron Parks. He is originally from West Virginia High. His high school is actually called Hurricane High. He was someone who did really, really well at the Under Armour Orlando camp. I know David Lake, our buddy, saw him in person at that camp and really liked him. And you see his ability to move for a big 350-pounder. I'm told, Miami thinks this guy can step in right away at guard. You get this guy in Cannon Pickett, who's also visiting this weekend at guard. Now you're talking about two just big bodies from that, Bay Area there. Cannon Pickett, Tampa, Deron Parks, Sarasota. Not an area that usually produces offensive linemen in bulk, but this is, from what I hear, the best year of South Florida offensive line or Florida offensive line in general, in history. And I think you look at this guy playing left tackle and doing a serviceable job, put him on the inside, let him brawl. I think he could cause a lot of problems. Wide body. You already have Ben Cogden as a tackle body. Hopefully add Joel Irvin, another massive tackle. You're in the mix for guys like Jackson Cantwell, Kenye Pepe. Add a guy like this, interior, or a Cannon Pickett, or maybe a Cannon Pickett as your guards inside. Now you're talking about a extremely powerful offensive line. And there's other names that I'm not even mentioning, but this is just such a good market for offensive linemen in the state of Florida. There's going to be a lot to choose from. There's a name that we haven't talked about a lot, but I wanted to show his film because he's visiting this weekend, and I can confirm major Miami interest in Deron Parks as an offensive guard. A question for Anthony Manzano about, or is Miami recruiting another elite center like SJ in 2026? Miami was really hard after Grant Wise, who everybody in the country wanted, just a stud player, ended up going to Clemson. I think, just culturally, that was more of a fit for him. He's from the Panhandle, right? So he's from Florida, but he's not really from South Florida or Central Florida. He is from a more kind of southern part of the state, even though it's actually the northern part of the state. That's the funny thing about Florida, how it works. So Miami didn't get that one done, even though his dad, Ty Wise, was Miami's center in the 90s. So one center I think we'd focus on, Ryan Moret, someone Miami's had a lot of interest in. He is former defensive tackle, now switching to offense, really developing on offense. But I saw him in person, really good-looking kid. 6'3", strong, no size issues at all. Probably going to be a plus size at center, bigger than SJ last year by far. And he was also a heavyweight champion wrestler from Southridge, alma mater of your boy, Pedro Ariz, at the Ariz Law Firm.
First graduating class of Southridge, baby.
So, his dad's actually the principal. Moret's dad's actually the principal at the school. So he's someone I think could fit in there at center with some of the behemoths that we're talking about around him. I think it'd be a nice fit. So, all these kind of guys, you want to get them, CanesConnection.com/CIS. Use that promo code /CIS. A lot of exclusive content. We're going to have a private chat for Canes Connection members last week. Talk about all the stuff that I can't talk about in public here. Also going to announce pretty soon. Still waiting for the final go-ahead to announce it, but we got some major content stuff coming up with Canes Connection, exclusive to people who sign up. CanesConnection.com/CIS. Support the show. Support Canes Connection. Support these student athletes, making sure that we have the best of the best visiting Miami, committing to Miami. Dante Allen, Trenton Breeze just reported he's going to be officially visiting Miami. The son of Malik Allen, Miami Heat coach, former Villanova commit, just flipped, top 50 player, really smart. I was watching some film on him the other day, Pete. Really just smart, complete guard, winning guard, guy that I think, kind of reminds me, it makes sense, but those Villanova guards that they had when they were at their heyday, I see a lot of that with Dante Allen, which makes sense why he committed there in the first place.
Tough combo guard. He's always been a guy since a young age because he played on those AAU teams with the Boozers and all these guys. And I actually coached some of those kids when they were third, fourth grade. So I followed a lot of them through this time there. And he was always, to me, I instilled it in them. But a guy like Dante Allen was always in like 7th, 8th grade, he was always like a big bully combo guard. And I think there was kind of a notion, we'll see, what happens. But obviously his dad having played in the NBA, he has the pedigree, but man, he's the toughness that he brings. He can get to the cup. I mean, he's a real winner, won big at Riviera Prep down here at Miami. So to me would be a great addition. He's like Trenton Breeze, who's been all over that story. He's been breaking that story left and right. He's going to be visiting. Dante Allen's going to be visiting April 12th. So that's a good sign. But got to see them hopefully land a couple guys in the portal here in the net. Hopefully by the end of the week. We're already here it's Wednesday, but a lot of schools are moving quickly here. So I would expect them to have a guy or two hopefully in the fold by the weekend, early part of next week, and build from there.
Yeah, man, it's an exciting time. We'll be covering it here, but I think honestly, it's exciting for the portal. I really want to see us get some of these high school kids back in the fold, and maybe that's old school, but if we get some of these big time, like a guy like Dante Allen, who's not necessarily
and I don't think he's a one and done sort of player. So I think you get him for 3-4 years potentially. We're really projecting because for not only for guys to stay 3-4 years in college, but stay in the same school. Who knows what's going to happen? But a guy like him, you have a better chance of that happening. Where his dad's an assistant coach with the Heat, he understands what it's supposed to look like. He understands what the sort of money he's going to be able to make here at the college level and doing it at home. So you start to build a nice base of those guys, and you can build something sustainable, not just through the portal. This year, it's going to have to be heavy portal, and it's going to be portal is going to be a big element of what this is moving forward as well. But obviously this year, you're going to be taking more portal guys than you're going to do pretty much, hopefully, any other year moving forward. So.
And look, when you think about what player was the constant in the best times of Miami basketball history, pretty big physical combo guard, homegrown, Isaiah Wong, right? So,
homegrown that he's here all 4 years. Just clarifying.
Not from South Florida, but yeah. I mean, he's home. He was not a portal kid. Right. So he was developed by the same coaching staff that signed him, and ultimately was really a pivotal piece. Now he had Jordan Miller, there were different guys, the Charlie Moores, there were different guys around, obviously Norchad and Nigel Pack on the Final Four run. So you had portal guys around him, but he was the focal point in many respects. So I'm not saying Dante Allen is Isaiah Wong, but I'm saying, you can get a big, strong combo guard that maybe is not a one and done guy because of just, he's not 6'10", guy they're going to be trying to pull no matter what. He might need some development, but he can develop here. And if he likes it here, it's his hometown, and the team's on the right trajectory. He stays. You bring in some portal guys around him, and you got something cooking. So,
and one note on Allen, by the way, too. Georgia was a school that he visited officially. I believe Eric Pastrana, Miami's new assistant coach, was the lead recruiter there in that recruitment for Georgia, because Georgia was heavily in the mix. So would imagine that relationship is going to go a long way there.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, man. I just think he's someone that, again, I think you can build around. So that to me is the key: is what are your foundational players going to be, right? You're a new coach. Who's going to be your coach on the floor? Well, this guy's dad's a coach. He's always played like a coach on the floor. He's a guard. He handles the ball. He's known for being a winning player at the high school level. He's not someone who gets by on traits. He gets by on IQ and things like that, just being an all-around good player, plays defense. So if you're trying to build something, to me, you start with a guy like this. So really excited to watch this recruitment in particular, because I think this is the kind of thing you can build on top of and build for the future. This is a long-term deal. It's not a go out of business sale where you're just trying to win one championship in year one. I think it's more about building something, and I'm really, really watching Dante Allen. And, listen, this is going to keep building as we head into the spring, into the summer. And I know as the weather heats up, we got a lot of folks that are going to be out there fishing. I'm out here in Colorado. It's a little cold. Maybe when it heats up, go for the native cutthroat trout. But a lot of you South Floridians getting ready for mahi-mahi season. You're going to want your fishing gear. go get the Columbia collection at the Miami Hurricane team store. All kinds of great fishing apparel. I love this Miami Hurricanes baseball with the Old English M fishing shirt, but you got all kinds of fishing stuff from the Columbia collection available now at the Miami Hurricane team store, MiamiHTS.com, or you can go to the store right across the street from the campus next to the Thesis Hotel. Use promo code INSIGHT20 on the website. You can say it there in person. We got a little button that they have at the cashier. You say Kansas Insight, they click it, boom, you get 20% off your first item online. Online at MiamiHTS.com. Promo code INSIGHT20. That'll get you 20% off your first item. So get your fishing stuff. You know what's going on.
Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. And look, guys, Dee's been out of town, but we keep it moving here on Canes Insight. We got practice tomorrow, so I will have my car report. Someone came up to my dad in the gym the other day and said, "Hey, I love the car reports, man. The people love those. I don't get it. It's they're quick and they're short and they're there's only so much that you can see, but hey, we appreciate the support."
I'll tell you, man, it's a year of Pete, man, between Brigham and Jay Lucas, between the outstanding wrestlers of the week segments, and then the car reports, man. You're the star of Canes media right now. What can I tell you? The rehabilitation project has been incredible. I've never seen your popularity
There was
higher.
nothing to rehab, man. There was nothing to rehab.
All right, fellas. So again, like and subscribe to the show. We'll be on tomorrow. Pete will be in the car giving you the latest from practice. No days off. Canes Insight. Go to CanesInsight.com. 7 million posts and counting. Sign up today. And as always, go Canes.
Go Canes.